We often use Sachi Brown as an example of when analytics goes too far in football, but for whatever reason, we are never willing to scapegoat football guys in the same way. And maybe we should, because while Sachi's teams were a train wreck on the field, he made some pivotal decisions that directly and indirectly led to some of the team's best players currently on the roster. He drafted Myles Garrett. He traded for Brock Osweiler in turn for a second-round pick that became Nick Chubb. Jabril Peppers became a pivotal piece in the OBJ trade. And he got fired because he vetoed a trade for A.J. McCarron that would have most certainly cost a second-round pick that landed Nick Chubb to begin with. So while some may have the urge to call Sachi Brown the worst GM of Browns history of all time because of the win-loss record, I really don't think so. But the man who preceded him, oh my goodness, he led a tenure filled with mistrust and dysfunction that has permanently stained the Cleveland Browns' reputation till this day. He has made some of the worst decisions in Cleveland Browns history, a history littered with mistake after mistake. Who is this man? His name is Ray Farmer. Ray Farmer was a former football player turned scout. He started with the Atlanta Falcons in 2002, became a director of player personnel for the Chiefs in 2006, and held that title until 2012 when he was hired away by the Cleveland Browns to be an assistant to Mike Lombardi. At the time, this was seen as a particularly great move. Ray Farmer had a great reputation in the NFL scouting community and was seen as a rising star. Behind the scenes, Ray was hired to kind of be a chess piece for Jimmy Haslam, who was unhappy with what Joe Banner and Mike Lombardi had put out on the field for the last 2 years. The following year, that's exactly what happened when Lombardi and Banner were fired by Jimmy Haslam and Ray Farmer was promoted to the position of general manager. So how did this rising star and this future great GM do in Cleveland? Well, he started the first year by giving Alex Mack the transition tag. Now, that's a little bit of an odd move, but for those of you who do not know what the transition tag is, it is an alternative tag to the franchise tag, which pretty much effectively turns an unrestricted free agent into a restricted free agent, meaning that player can find another deal with a different team, but the Browns ultimately get the first right of refusal. They get to match it, and if they don't want to match it, then he can be on the other team that offered him the deal. Now, Alex Mack was one of the best centers in football, and a lot of people just thought the Browns would franchise tag him if they couldn't come to a long-term agreement, which most teams do. But the Browns took a different route, which was not received well by the public. Ray Farmer is somebody who took the more frugal approach to being a GM. This is somebody who signed a lot of guys after they got cut from a team so he can continue to stack up compensatory picks. This is somebody who would never really sign people on the open free agent market and wait till they're cut. He was frugal, and this is part of the reason why he offered Alex Mack the transition tag, because he knew a team would offer him less than what the franchise tag would be for that 1 year. And it ultimately kind of worked out because Jacksonville did offer a contract that did have a opt-out after 2 years, but was less than what the franchise tag would have been, and kept Alex Mack in Cleveland for an extra 2 years. The downside is that this completely destroyed the relationship between the Cleveland Browns front office and Alex Mack. But honestly, it's 50-50 whether that was a good or bad decision. He also let go of DeQuell Jackson and let TJ Ward walk in free agency, but he did make some splashes in free agency. He signed Andrew Hawkins, Carlos Dansby, Dante Whitner, and Ben Tate, which did get the city excited. I mean, there was a lot of excitement surrounding these free agents. Ben Tate, I know. But with that excitement, a lot of people were interested to see what Ray Farmer had up his sleeve for the draft. Oh no. So the Browns had 2 first-round picks in 2014. Just for those people who don't remember, this is a draft that included names like Khalil Mack, Mike Evans, Taylor Lewan, Odell Beckham, Aaron Donald, Zach Martin, Ryan Shazier, and CJ Mosley. Now, this was an insanely star-studded draft. I mean, to make that point clear, of the 32 players that were picked in the first round, 17 ended up making at least one Pro Bowl appearance, which means that the Browns' 2 first-round picks each had a 53% chance of landing a Pro Bowler. 53%. That's better than that. It's insanely good. It's a great safety blanket to have in a year that you have 2 first-round picks. And you would think with those odds, it would be impossible for any decision maker, let alone the highly touted rising star, Ray Farmer, to make a bad decision or to do something as asinine as draft the 2 worst players in the entire draft with his first 2 picks. It would be almost impossible given the odds that you have. This is a layup, a easy slam dunk to land a great player. So what did Ray Farmer do?
With the 8th pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Justin Gilbert, defensive back, Oklahoma State.
This pick boils my blood till this day. It's not just that you traded back from 4, which could have landed your Mike Evans or Khalil Mack. No, it's not just that. It's not the fact that from picks 5 to 17 in this draft, every team but the Browns drafted a Pro Bowler. No, it's not that. It's not even the fact that Justin Gilbert turned out to be the laziest dude ever drafted in the first round. And that includes Kelvin Benjamin, who was drafted in this first round. He was lazier than Kelvin Benjamin because this dude refused to buy an alarm clock, refused to show up on time, refused to come to work, refused to work hard, refused to do anything to be a good player in the NFL despite having all the physical gifts. No, it's not the fact that they make the selection without ever interviewing his coaches, his parents, or him. No. It's not that. It's not that makes me angry about this pick. It's the fact that Ray Farmer made this pick. Ray Farmer is a man who would tell anybody who will listen how wide receivers are just not important. And you know what? Here's a quote from him. I would say, how important are those guys? Speaking of top-tier wide receivers, Farmer told WKRK-FM in Cleveland, per the Plain Dealer. Name the last big-time wide receiver to win a Super Bowl. Gordon matters to me because I like the guy and I think he's a good player, but at the end of the day, when you look at teams that have these mega wide receivers, name the last guy that's won a Super Bowl. There are none. The last guy that really helped his team get there was T.O. So this is a dude who does not believe in drafting the mega wide receiver, which is fine, whatever. I don't think that's the right way to go with it. But if that's your philosophy, that's fine. You don't think wide receivers win championships, so you didn't draft one of the great wide receivers available to you in this draft field of great wide receivers? Okay, whatever. I can get past that. It's the fact that this same man with this wide receivers aren't that important philosophy on football decided with that philosophy to draft a defensive back 8 overall. Because for whatever reason, wide receivers are so not important and not essential, and you don't need them to win games in the NFL. No, you don't need the wide receivers, but it's so important on the other hand that you draft a top-tier corner to defend these guys you think are borderline useless? What? It's the worst pick in the draft that Johnny Manziel also got selected by the Browns. And yeah, that's a bad pick. Everything's been said about that. Johnny Manziel, terrible decision. But, that's more on Jimmy Haslam than it's on Ray Farmer, even though Ray Farmer definitely had a hand in it. He tries to act like he didn't. He had a hand in it. Because the Justin Gilbert pick, man, it's just worse. It's worse, honestly, because the Browns were in such a good position, in such a good draft. It was literally almost impossible for them to draft the worst player in the draft, and they did it. They picked the worst player in the entire 2014 draft with the 8th pick in it. And he was a defensive back from a guy who was a GM who does not believe in drafting wide receivers. It's just fascinating, to be honest, because all of the things were in line for the Browns to make a good decision with that pick. But for whatever reason, Ray Farmer went against his own philosophy to suck. How? Now, to give Ray some credit, he did make some solid choices, getting Joe Bitonio in the second round and Christian Kirksey in the third to replace DeQuell Jackson. And the 2014 season started off and went amazingly for the Browns, really good. The Browns, with just 5 weeks left to go in the season, were 7-4 and in first place of the division under the steady play of Brian Hoyer, led by a Kyle Shanahan offense that gave this team life offensively, especially with how he schemed wide receivers, given what he had on the roster. But unbeknownst to the Browns fans partying in the streets at this moment, the team and the structure behind it would implode due to infighting with the front office and Mike Pettine's coaching staff. This, on top of Brian Hoyer's average play, put pressure on the team to start Johnny Manziel, and after 2 disappointing losses in Buffalo and Indianapolis, gave way to the front office winning that tug of war and having to start Johnny Manziel against the Cincinnati Bengals, which was one of the most embarrassing losses in franchise history. And after that, the season was pretty much over. Huge disappointment. But, not everything's terrible. There's some positives about the season that Ray Farmer can carry on throughout the offseason to make sure he has a better year 2. And you know what? Hey, you got some pieces on this team. This team almost won the division, blew up in the middle of the season, but almost won the division. And you know what? You got a top-tier offensive coordinator and... okay, well, maybe you can give Brian Hoyer one more shot and put, okay, well, at least you got some solid young pieces that you can retain in Jabal Sheard and Buster Screen. You know what, all those guys left, whatever, but, Ray didn't do bad in free agency last year. He made a pretty good splash that got everybody excited and led to some success on the field, so you know what, he's probably going to do it again. Oh, this is going to be bad, isn't it? Remember all the dysfunction from last season that led to Manziel starting and Kyle Shanahan leaving? Well, Ray Farmer was apparently 100% of the driving force behind that, as he got caught sending text messages to his coaches during the game. Reported on by some that he was demanding a change at the quarterback position, which led to Ray Farmer, the GM, getting suspended for the first few games of the season. Yes, a general manager can and has gotten suspended. And of course, he worked for the Browns when it happened, and his name was Ray Farmer. You know who else got suspended, though, during the offseason? Josh Gordon. After a team employee uploaded a video to Instagram of Josh Gordon and Joe Hayden and other players having fun and drinking alcohol on a private jet. The NFL sent somebody to the airport to drug test, well, really alcohol test, Josh Gordon at the time, because due to the terms of his suspension, Josh Gordon was not allowed to drink alcohol. Speaking of sobriety, Johnny Manziel, the first-round pick of last year, entered rehab. And speaking of trying to rehabilitate a failing public image by not actually making real systemic changes to oneself, but putting an ugly blanket over the real issues, the Browns changed their uniforms to these jerseys. This uniform was meant to break the Browns from their stench of years past and enter them into a new era of success, much like the Seattle Seahawks when they changed their uniforms. But this uniform came to be a universal symbol for losing and is most synonymous with the Browns going 0-16 with Hugh Jackson. This uniform was so bad that 5 years later, Browns fans would jump for joy at the return of the uniforms that they were trying to run away from in the first place. And speaking of losing and running away from success, the Browns had 12 draft picks in the 2015 draft and failed to select a single Pro Bowler. Yes. So, nice job, Ray. Eventually, all of those mistakes piled up on Ray and fielded a team that was just incapable of winning, not by design, but just because they stunk and they went 2-14 and everybody got fired, paving a way for a new regime. Here's why I think Ray Farmer is the worst general manager in the very least in Cleveland Browns history, but if not football history. Because at the end of the day, a GM's job on a football team, no matter what his title is or how they divvy up responsibility, at the end of the day, a general manager's job is to make decisions. And of the thousands of decisions that he made in Cleveland, you can argue one or two worked out for the betterment of the franchise. Really one, and I'm talking Joe Bitonio. The rest resulted in just flat embarrassment, a stench that still hasn't left the Browns till this day. Drafting the two worst players in a loaded 2014 draft with the 8th and 22nd pick, and signing Dwayne Bowe, of all people, to do virtually nothing for a year. It's just the icing on the cake when it comes to bad decisions by Ray Farmer during these 2 years. He got suspended. He was a part of the committee that forced Johnny Manziel to start when he was clearly not ready from a football standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from just every standpoint you could think of. Johnny Manziel wasn't ready, and that decision led to the Browns losing Kyle Shanahan, who's one of the best offensive coordinators in football. Ray Farmer just did so much damage to the franchise's image than I have ever seen a GM do in 2 years. Sure, there are GMs that whiff on draft picks or forget to sign key players or get cheap here or there, but very rarely is there a GM that just hits the trifecta of just terrible GM decisions. Normally they're bad in one area, but all right in other too. Ray Farmer was the rare Triple Crown winner in this department, which is why Ray Farmer is the worst general manager of all time. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this retrospective of Ray Farmer's 2-year career in Cleveland. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think Ray Farmer is as bad as I think he is? Or do you think he's worse? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, ding that notification bell if you really like what I do. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.